unless that emotional thing makes you do something rash. In retirement, it actually can be a great danger. Let's take a look at this. So, we're going to look at a $100,000 portfolio. Okay, and we're going to do a sequence of returns. One where we make money in the front end, one where we make money in the back end. And let's just see what happens. So year 1, year 2, 3, 4, and 5. So plus 40%, plus 20%, plus 0, minus 15, and minus 20. So at the end of year 1, you have $140,000. Year 2, you're up to $168,000. Year 3, of course, you stay the same because you were flat. Then year 4, you're at $142,000, and year 5, you're at $114,000. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take that and flip it around. We're going to have the bad years first. So minus 20, 15, 0, 20, and 40. And let's see what we get. 80,000 for the first year, 68 for the second year. Stay at 68. You're at 81 for there. And then year 5, you're at 114, 240. And notice the difference between year 5 and example 1 and example 2. There is a difference. Now, during the accumulation phase, sequence returns doesn't really matter unless they make you do something rash. It can be a scary ride, especially if you're fully invested in the stock market. Everyone here has been through 2008 and 2000, so they know what I'm talking about. But you really end up in the same place. Now here's the critical difference right here. You take this, and we're going to do the same 5 years, and we're going to do the same returns. But this time we're going to take 6% a year out of this $100,000 portfolio. So we make the 140, we take 6,000 out, and you're left with 134. Year 2, you got the 168 left. You take that 6,000 out, and you're 154.8. Year 3, you're just 6,000 lower, of course. Year 4, the negative effects start hitting. So you're at 120,000. In year 5, you're at $90,000 after that, after taking 6% a year initially. So let's keep that number in mind. Now, let's do the reverse. Let's have the bad years first. So at the end of the year, you're at 80,000, you're still taking your $6,000, so you're down to 74,000. Year 2, you're at 62.9 because you've lost another 15%. You're taking that 60,000 out, and your remainder is 56.9. Year 3, you're still lower at 50.90, and year 4, same formula, 55,000. Year 5, you're at 71,000. Now, think about that and compare the two. So you have that same sequence of return comparison. You're not taking money out, it's not a huge impact. You are taking money out, the sequence of returns does make a significant effect. Why I've heard there's an advertisement from one of the companies that said that called this the 3 years before and the 3 years after retirement is the retirement red zone. And this is really a simple mathematical concept so you can understand why when you convert from accumulation over to distribution, you do have to be careful. Because if those negative years come in the wrong time, they can significantly impact your retirement. This is the other thing too. You know, if you had the bad sequence of returns, how would you be feeling right there? Say you retired in 2000, or you retired in 2000, and you worked through that bad period into 2003. It could really make your portfolio look ugly, and you can lose sleep at night. Here's tax-free investing. You know, if you have any of your treasury bonds, we can talk about that. But you know, what's a way of starting to protect yourself from the sequence of returns problems? Well, Here's one way. Let's take the bucket and let's put it into 3 briefcases here. So we've got this $850,000 portfolio and we're dividing it into 3 parts. So we put $206,000 into the first envelope or briefcase, $169,000 into the second briefcase, and $474,000 into the third briefcase. And what we're doing is instead of investing it all one way, we're investing it 3 different ways. The first one, or the $200,000 one, we're assuming we're getting 3% and taking $45,000 a year annual income for 5 years. Now, that will pay for our lifestyle for 5 years. And it's in very conservative stuff that's going to make sure that you get your, you deplete that after 5 years, and then you have this bucket with the conservative investments that goes back up to the same $206,000, and then you use that for 5 years. Okay? Then you have the $474 in growth investments, and you have that for 10 years. Now, with that, if you're not touching that bucket, do the secrets of returns matter for that last bucket? From the previous? What? Yeah, it doesn't matter for this because you're not touching it for 10 years.
So what is the 6% assumption?
Yeah, that's the 6% assumption is the average return of like the S&P over a period. Yeah.
Lately, it hasn't been anywhere near that.
It can be higher and lower. Lately, the last few years it hasn't. Some years it's higher. You know how many times the average return of the S&P, the 6 to 7% actually happens? It happens less than 10% of the time, that actual number per year. It's just the average over a longer period of time. So if you got that, again, long period of time, remember your accumulation phase? Well, that's kind of like a mini accumulation phase. Well, you have some of your money set up for distribution. It's one strategy you can use to protect yourself when you go from accumulation to distribution. Does anyone have any questions on this? Yeah.
The only thing that bothered me about what you're saying is, a couple slides back, we started with 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
You showed us 2 different sequences.
Right.
Both of them wound up less than 100,000.
Right. Because the sequences you're talking about in distribution, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Both wound up under 100,000.
Correct.
Even with the 24 that you took out, 71 and 24 is only 95.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so my question is, if the person had taken their 100,000,
Mm-hmm.
put it under their mattress for 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the 5 years, they'd have 100,000.
But they didn't take 6,000 of income from it that they needed in
No,
retirement.
and if they had, they would have the 75.
6 times 5 is 30, so they'd have 70,000.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd have 70.
Did you do it for, okay.
Yeah.
So did you take 6 out 5 times?
Yep. Took 6,000 out 5
But
times.
my point is, I thought you were heading toward fixed income annuity or something like that.
Well, that's another way of doing it. That's, again, we're going a little bit beyond where this presentation is going. I'm giving you some ideas and some suggestions that could possibly work. But when you start getting into the specifics, down to that level, that's like for a one-on-one on how you want to do it. Okay? The other thing is the LERP would also be something to do. This is just showing you how. In this case, you went through and you took $45,000 a year for 10 years, allowed a portion of it to grow back up to the same $850,000 you started with.
I know, but where is it at 5 years, though?
What?
Where is it at 5?
Right here, at 5 years, this is empty.
The other one to the right there.
Well, it's on average 6% a year.
So you don't have that number up there. What's the number?
474 after 10 years, it should be about
I
850,000.
understand that. What is it after 5 years?
I don't know that calculation off the top of my head, but again, we're looking at a long-term, a medium-term, and a short-term investment. Okay? Where that one ends up in 5 years it's good to know, but the important thing is when bucket 1 and bucket 2 are empty, in 10 years you should have bucket 3 refilled to refill bucket 1 and bucket 2. That's just how this particular one is. It's one strategy. Either it works for you or you're comfortable with it, or you need to do something else. Again, that is something for a one-on-one discussion for your specific details with what you have, what you need to do, and where you want to go. This is a possibility. And it's one that works, because you have something refilling the buckets for income. Mhm. Yes.
You assume a 24% tax rate then?
Yeah, that's what the assumption when this was calculated, yeah.
Okay, so including social security and everything else that you're out on the chart?
No, that's just including these buckets. Again, this is a simple illustration on how to deal with the investment bucket, not the social security bucket. So it's one part and one possible strategy that you can use. But let's back off on this because we're getting more into the,
I'm just trying to, this is for somebody who plans to live for 20 years.
no,
It's ongoing.
it's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing.
You're showing you how to keep filling the till.
Yeah, keep filling the till. Use up this till first,
I see what you want.
use this one to fill this till again,
So you don't empty that third one, you just take
half, and
half and put it in the two.
just like you did at the beginning, wash, rinse, and repeat.
Okay.
It's a cycle.
I got
Okay, and it's one, again, strategy you can use to do this.
you. Okay.
Okay? You know, the last bucket grows higher, you'll do better. If the last bucket grows lower, you'll do worse.
We've got a bull market for 12 years, I remind you.
Yeah, well, for 12 years, this would probably work better than what you saw
That's
here.
true.
That's true. It would have worked better over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it was 2000 to 2010, it would have worked a little worse.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So income producing vehicles, you know, there's bonds, income mutual funds, dividend paying stocks, annuities, and loans. So bonds, most people are familiar with them. They're basically a loan to either a government or an entity, and you get paid a coupon every year, or every 6 months, or every 3 months. The two big risks, and you get your principal back at the end of the contract. The two big risks are interest rate risk, which is very severe for munis and treasury bonds, and default risk, or will you get your money back?
So are you distinguishing this between the differences of that and a regular municipal bond and something for a bond?
Well, a bond fund wouldn't just hold many of those bonds in there, so I'm not making any difference. That was just a bond. But a bond fund holds many different types of bonds.
Well, the difference is the asset value changes in a bond versus a bond.
Well, the asset value changes on a bond too.
Not if you keep it till maturity.
No, that's true, but during the term, it does change in value. But again, we're getting a little too much detail for what we're going on here. So there are income mutual funds. So they can be bonds, stocks, a combination of bonds. They have professional management. They're generally a very low entrance amount, usually $1,000 or $2,000, some even lower. You take on market risk, and the income can fluctuate in these. So dividend-paying stocks. Got clients who like to use dividend-paying stocks. You know, a lot of stocks distribute their profits as dividends. If you have REITs, which are real estate investments, to get their favorite tax treatment, they've got to distribute at least 90% of their returns. If profits decrease, the dividend could be cut. Conversely, when the profits increase, the dividend can go up. And the value fluctuates with market conditions. So annuities. You know, we have their insurance-based, competitive rate return, tax-deferred accumulation. But probably the most important thing on it is you do get an option for guaranteed lifetime income. This is another strategy in that briefcase strategy. You could use that for the first bucket and it would never, ever run out. So, let's see here, just skip all the details on how these work. Let's just look at a case study list. We got two 65-year-olds, they're the Thompsons, and they have a $700,000 portfolio, and they have employer stock and CDs. They're concerned about outliving their money, and they need to decide how to generate retirement income from their portfolio. Again, this is hypothetical. It's another strategy, and it's just to start giving you some ideas of what you can use in your personal portfolio. So, they took 400,000 of the original 700,000 and split it among these four asset classes. They kept some of the company stock, bought corporate T-bills and real estate. Purchased 300,000 for an immediate fixed annuity that generated $1,740 a month in this example. So, the original portfolio, if you look at the company stock and the CDs, paying 3 and 2%, they were generating about $18,500 in income a year. Now, with the diversification, going to stock, bonds, treasuries, and real estates, at these different rates of return, they were able to generate $13,000 of income a year from that part of the portfolio, and then their fixed annuity generated another $20,000, and that's guaranteed for life. So they ended up making almost double the amount of income, and with the increased diversification, is the risk higher or lower? Lower. So it's another strategy that can be used to help solve this income question in retirement. So you got those three benefits. So prepare for the unexpected. Long-term care needs, health care coverage, and estates. But this is probably, when I see failed retirements, this probably is the second biggest cause of failed retirements that I've run into in my career, is long-term care. Now, is long-term care covered by Medicaid? Medicare, excuse me. Is long-term care covered by Medicare? No. Okay. Is long-term care covered by supplemental health insurance in retirement? No. You have to figure out a strategy on how to deal with it, because 50% of men and 70% of women will need to go to a nursing home sometime in their lifetime. And here's the real issue where this happens is, this is simply an example where a couple, the Wilsons, had a $750,000 portfolio. But the year he retired, he ended up having a stroke, and he had to spend over $270,000 in long-term care costs over 3 years. So their projection that their portfolio would last to age 86 because of the unexpected long-term care costs, portfolio died around age 77 and ran out of money. So this is real world, and it does happen. So here are your options. You can self-insure. You know, I had one of my larger clients actually had their father has got the record for long-term care costs of a lifetime. He got Alzheimer's and was incredibly healthy. And he spent 11 years in the memory unit, and cost them over $2.1 million in care over that 11 years. Fortunately, they could afford it, but do you really need to afford it? You know, do you really want to take on that possibility of that much liability, even if you can't afford it? So, Medicaid. Well, to qualify for Medicaid, what has to happen?
No assets.
No assets, yeah, basically spend down your assets, so that's kind of a guarantee for poor farm planning. You can also get long-term care insurance. In life insurance, in life insurance, there's a lot of riders where you can actually access your death benefit for long-term care needs. So that's another good option these days for covering this long-term care problem. Second advantage to that one is, one of the big things is, I buy a long-term care policy, what if I never use it? Well, if it's a rider on a life insurance policy, and you manage not to use it your whole life, then your family gets the money, they get the benefits. If you end up using it during your lifetime, your family gets to help to care for you during your lifetime and their lifetime. So your family benefits in either way you look at it. Healthcare costs, as one of the things that's something you have to consider. We're not going to go into this in great detail, but generally healthcare costs lately have been running much higher than the inflation rate. Okay, state conservation. Now, with the latest tax law, it's now over 11 million that's excluded from estate tax. But when it comes to estate tax conservation, the big real issue really isn't this anymore since they're so high. But the issue is divorce. And it's not your divorce, it's your kid's divorce. When you set up a estate conservation, you can put things into what's called an irrevocable trust, where your kids can benefit from your money when you pass, but they don't own it. So, say like my one poor client whose son-in-law came home out of nowhere and told one of their daughters, I want a divorce. With this type of setup, and you have the money into the properly stated trust, that money is excluded from marital assets. In other words, they can't touch it in a divorce. So, one of the things I always joke about lawyers is they're the ultimate pay me now or pay me later people. You can pay them now to set up things right, or you can pay them later to fix mistakes. And the cost later is usually way higher than the cost now. So, if you have to be over that $11.8 million, we can talk about this. We set these up all the time. We know how to set up insurance policies in what's called an irrevocable trust, and that will shield it from estate taxes. So, what it comes down to is, where do you want to go from here? We've covered a lot of information. I'm sure that you've learned something from this, and we've given you some possible strategies or advantages that could be used to benefit yourself in retirement and even a little bit beyond. But what do you need to do next? Well, number 5, get some help. Take a look at teams over the years. Great journeys and great teams. There's Lewis and Clark. There's the first people to climb Mount Everest. Also, the Fellowship of the Ring. But my favorite is Kirk and Spock. I can be your Spock, and you can be Kirk. I can set you up to be Kirk. In my previous career, I was actually a scientist for over 20 years, so I really understand how all these mechanics work. And I look at them from a very rational, dispassionate methodology. You can be Kirk. You are the dreamer. It's your retirement. What do you want to do with it? And I can be back there to just help you stay in line. So here's a recap of what we covered. Size up your current situation and look at where all your sources of income are. Understand the distribution rules. Develop an investment strategy. Prepare for the unexpected. And get some help to help you with this. So, are there any questions? Now, I'd like to keep the questions just to the slides, to the scope of the presentation, and nothing personal at this point. So, are there any additional questions? Yes, go ahead, Richard.
Are you the only person in the Normandy Financial Group, or do you have other people working with you?
Well, Nora works with me over there. She's right in back.
Are you also a financial advisor? So you're a solo operation?
For now, but that's changing very shortly.
When were you established?
Normandy was established in 2012, but I started in the industry in 2007 at Smith Barney.
What's your fee structure?
My fee structure is generally assets under management, and I generally charge 1.25%.
Do you use any particular group of funds over any others?
No, I try to look at what's best for the current situation. I try to keep that open. I limit it only in the case where they're very small accounts and costs are a significant factor in performance, but that's generally for accounts under $30,000. I also, with my other partners like Rob back there, he's one of my insurance partners. We do all the type of insurance planning that we've kind of touched on in here. And I have other partners, legal partners, that I work with very closely, and accounting partners that I work with closely, so we can take a look at that whole picture and make everything work together. So it's not just me, it's just, there's multiple entities, but we all work close together to try to provide you what you need.
I don't hear from my current certified financial planner on a regular basis. Things can happen in the market, and I don't hear anything from him except for his annual newsletter. how do you handle your clients?
I try to call everyone once a month if they want to. Some people don't want that much calling, some people want more. You know, we just based on what your needs are. I generally have a monthly newsletter, and you've got my phone number, you can call me anytime, and I try to get back to you within 24 hours at the most, usually the same day. Thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about our first meeting. You know, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to learn something new based on your specific situation. What will I learn? What is new? Well, it depends on your situation, but usually we'll find an adjustment or a tax strategy that will help you make your situation better. Insurance strategy too. Just really depends on what you're doing. How long will it take? About an hour. What should I bring? You don't have to bring anything. If you bring statements, we'll have more fruitful discussion. You don't have to bring anything. Will I try to sell you anything in the first meeting? No. How will you feel as a voter? Well, you'll feel more knowledgeable and more empowered. Where will we do it? We can do it anywhere you want, whatever's comfortable for you. And what will the next steps be? Well, there's really two basic steps. One, we like each other, you like what you hear, we can decide to work together. Second is, you like what you hear, but you need to think about it or you need to wait on it for whatever reason, that's fine. There's a third one is, you know, we could hate each other and call each other names and storm out of the office. But that one doesn't happen that often, but then at least we know we aren't going to work together. So, you'll get a chance to talk, get some new ideas. If you come to the office, you'll see where we work. You'll get to meet more of my team. And you'll get something valuable and have a good experience. The other thing is, I don't, to make an appointment today, I don't have my calendar. Well, go ahead and make an appointment based on what you think your calendar says, and just give us a call if you need to reschedule. If you want to think about everything you heard today, it's another common thing. Well, like most people, including myself, in 3 or 4 days after first hearing this, I would have forgotten at least 80% of what I heard. So it's a good time to review what we've talked about and make it more specific to your situation. I already have an advisor. Well, that's good if you already do have an advisor, but just like the gentleman back there stated, you're here for a reason. So if you're out looking for an advisor, it's good to talk to someone else to get a second opinion and some ideas. Now, one other thing I just want to do in closing is, as I said, I wasn't going to sell you on anything. But really what I want to sell you on is I want to sell you on you. You have the ability to make the right decisions, and you have the ability to have a successful retirement. You just have to, you have to choose to do that and get some help to plot your course through this wonderful situation. My dad now has been retired for over 30 years, and he moved in after my mom died. He moved in with us a few years ago, and even with that, he is still having a retirement where he drives, he goes and shoots pool, and he's 86 years old. So that age of 90, I've lived it through my parents and my grandparents. Most of them did actually make it past age 90. So you can do this. All you really need to is take control of your financial future, take control of the reins, and let's have some fun and have a really great retirement based on what you do. Thank you for your time.
And one other question. What kind of car do you drive?
I'll answer that one even though it's out of scope. I have everything from a classic old Mercedes to a Toyota Matrix.
What's in the parking lot today?
A Volvo.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for the water.